Try to keep my money and my religion too.
Now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Clay Douglas show?
My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something.
We both took the same oath, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that.
I'm gonna keep my big BA, keep my friends the same, keep the government out of my business, and y'all can keep the change.
He is the free American, Clay Douglas.
We know what we need, we know who to blame.
Catch the Free American Hour, weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
I'll keep the USA and y'all can keep the change.
For the podcast and more details, visit www.freeamerican.com or catch the podcast by phone by calling 832-999-8621.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. My guest today is Tom Demeter, and I'm not sure if I pronounced that right, Tom.
Yeah, you did very well, thank you.
And his website is, or at least his email is God's First Witness. And that's interesting that, aren't there supposed to be two witnesses here? Tom?
Yeah. Well, Clay, thanks for inviting me on your show, and especially about this very important topic of our places of safety, because this is a very, very important subject for us, especially today, because we are so close to major changes, as we all know. So I really want to thank you for inviting me and allowing me to kind of prepare people for the changes coming from a completely different point of view, which is hopefully going to be beneficial to every one of us by listening to your show and to the things which we are going to talk about today.
Well, now, one of the things, you came from you were born in a free country, but it turned communist. It became communist. So this is, your father was a businessman, an economist, a deacon in his Calvinist church. But after the end of the World War II, the Soviet Union occupied your country. Which was that?
Well, I was living in Hungary at the time, and because I'm a Hungarian, so I had to live there, and with my parents. But what happened is that after World War II, when we lost the war, my parents, my father was a high mucky in the government and in business. He saw what was coming and what the communists do to the leadership of the country. They actually wiped them out. And so we escaped from Hungary from the occupational forces, but we were repatriated or sent back there, so we could get our judgment for being leaders amongst the people. So my father was put into prison, and by the grace of God, he escaped not being killed. And he went through experienced many miracles that he was able to stay alive. Nevertheless, our family, or his family, was declared as an enemy of the people, and we were not allowed to work. And I don't know if you realize this, but this is exactly what is happening in the United States now. Also, the media is not telling us that what it really means is new National Defense Authorization Act actually declares every American a enemy combatant. So not just an enemy, but an enemy combatant. And what that means is that you have absolutely no legal right whatsoever to oppose a government or to even defend yourself. So they can do just about anything to you what they want to do.
They're also trying to make it illegal for us to even protest the government, as I've been doing for the last 20 years. And they've tried to turn me, demonize me because, I started the militia, I was part of the resistance, I'm an extremist, I'm anti-government. And, the truth is that I'm not Tom. I simply want the government that was guaranteed me by the Constitution, by our founding fathers.
Right. Actually, you are not alone now. Every one of us are in your shoes. And the sad thing is that we are not being warned, neither by our leaders, political leaders, who are supposed to tell us this, or our churches, who are supposed to be the guardians of our freedoms and our religious freedoms too. So what we are experiencing here is exactly what we experience behind the Iron Curtain, that both the religions and the government and the whole establishment is, how do I call it, led by one individual, which is the great Führer, the military commander, and we have to do everything, yes sir, no sir, just like in the army. There is no individuality left, there is no more freedom left. Either we obey or we are going to be put aside and basically eliminated.
Now,
neutralized is a nice word for it.
What I've tried to tell people and is that what is happening in America right now, and I've been pretty much predicting this and following the thing, because anytime a communist regime takes over a country, they go after three classes of people in order. And correct me if I'm wrong here. The farmers first, because they don't want you being able to feed yourself. They go after the intelligentsia next. That's anyone that's smart enough to know who they are and what they're doing. And third, they go after the veterans or the law enforcement that are still loyal to the old regime. In our case, that would be those of us that took an oath to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
Right, you are completely right on this. We are looking forward to a time when we are going to be eliminated collectively and individually who are of the old system and believe in the old system. The most persecuted group going to be, of course, the Christians, because the Christians are supposed to believe in God, and they have to, the government is, of course, a different God, belongs to the anti-God called the God of this world. So that's the first group, and of course the second group is the intelligentsia, or the leaders who have been brought up with a certain frame of mind and education, you know, what is right and what is wrong. So that has to be eliminated because a new system is going to come in. And then after that comes the next set of society, which is expediting the laws and the procedures of the government, of the leadership, which is of course the police and the bureaucrats of the government. So all these people are in great danger right now, and we got to recognize that we all individually will have to make a decision whom we are going to serve. Are we going to serve the new government, or are we going to serve the old government and the old God, or the new God? Because we like it or not, we are going to change gods, which is going to be the bottom of these things.
Well, let's see. Couldn't you define the new God as you know, gold, oil, and drugs?
Yeah, well, it goes beyond that. Actually, when we talk about gods, we talk about. First of all, let us go back just to see the point that why we're in this situation right now. And I would like to organize my presentation for the audience. I would like to make 5 points today. And one is that why it is so important to look for a place of safety. This is extremely important right now because we are going to see these tremendous changes coming down, which most people can't even imagine because of our human limitations. The second point I would like to discuss is why this issue basically comes down to a religious issue. And we have to look at it this way. I know most people don't want to look at the religious issue and the political issue and all these things together, but we have to do it for a certain reason. And then why I'm talking to many people say, well, yeah, we know that the end is going to come, the whole universe is going to come to an end, but not right now. So why is it that it's going to happen right now and starting, and has started already actually last year, with the National Defense Authorization Act signed into law on the last day of December of 2011. And then we got to talk about how to prepare for these tremendous changes, and changes which we cannot really even able to appreciate, imagine even in our minds, because our minds are limited, and so on. And then finally, where are these places of safety? Because let's face it, I mean, we are humans and we like to protect ourselves, and we are intelligent beings. We are able to think and plan and execute our plans. So we got to do something to stay alive, because see, these changes which coming are going to be, like the Bible says, like in the days of Noah, and only people were able to make it through these changes who followed God. But the question is, it's not that simple as we imagine, because we have so many different religions and everything. So we are entering into a time which is going to be extremely confusing. And for us to find order, we have to really take a step back and take a look at an overview. What is really happening? Why are the reasons? Why am I in this trouble? So this is why the first point which I would like to talk about is why it is so important right now to realize that we're going to need a place of safety.
All right, let me stop you right there for just a moment, because I came out with years ago. I had 5 acres out in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of the desert, and I was very comfortable there. And I planned to start a little sort of a little village there with a store and a restaurant. And the title of it was Liberty Villages. 3 documents on the wall: the Declaration of Independence, the Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence, Constitution, Bill of Rights. And I asked myself, now, how did people exist 1,000 years ago? How did we live in biblical times? How did people get by? How did they? Oh, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have any of this stuff. We didn't have the communication. How did they get by? And the answer was a self-sufficient family farm. If people worked together on a farm, on a plantation, on a ranch, and they generate their own electricity from everything God gave us, the sun, the wind. They put it on their own homes, and they've got, basically low-cost structures, which you can do out of mud, bricks, dirt, or canvas. You can have low-cost structures. If people work together that way, they can defend each other. And if they take in veterans in return for labor and food and room and board, then you've got protection there from people that are, disciplined or somewhat disciplined. Right. And to me, that was a place of safety, and I wanted to see those all across the country. Tell me now your definition of a place of safety.
Okay, Clay, this is a complex issue, like I mentioned to you, because it involves many things, like you mentioned. First of all, it involves dollar issues, okay, so it's a financial issue. Then it involves politics, because when you set up something, you have to get into the organization of the general organization of the state or a government. And then, of course, it's a religious issue, so you guys, or everybody in that community, somebody able to come into oneness of mind to decide and accept what is truth and what is evil and what is error. So when we start our Liberty Village, we are looking into what I call the places of safety. That's a biblical term I use, because it has to be identified separate from the regular structure, governmental structure we have in the United States or throughout the world.
Right. Let me stop here for just a second. I'm accused of starting the militias around the country, which has been demonized. What part of the Second Amendment don't they understand?
Okay. I hear what you're saying, but my take on it as coming as a minister, okay, because my background is religion. I have been through the Iron Curtain. I have seen World War II. I've been in it. I was a little kid. I was in the revolution, and I escaped through the Iron Curtain. I've seen what can happen, what is happening. Matter of fact, when I escaped from behind the Iron Curtain, it was in the 1950s, the middle of the 50s. It was the same situation what is happening right now in Africa, and where you see all these revolutions taking place throughout, from Libya to Syria to many of these countries in northern Africa. And the reason why I am not advocating a military intervention and how would you call it, resistance, because that is going to be a kiss of death. And this is what happened behind the Iron Curtain. If you were in the military, you were in the police department, you were the first ones after the Christians to be wiped out, because you presented the greatest danger. Now, if it would be only a physical thing and a physical government, there would be no problem. I would go along with it. But the fight is much, much bigger right now. We are coming to a time when the United States, and not only the United States, but the rest of the nations of the world are going to go into turmoil, and this turmoil is going to affect not just every nation, but every individual individually, or every man individually. Why? Because we are going into a time when there are going to be spiritual forces involved in our lives directly. And see, this is what happens. It's very important for us to realize at this time that we need to take an overview of the whole issue. Everybody wants to solve the problem piece by piece and in small parts of the puzzle. But if we cannot be like the generals and the the ultimate general of the war, because we are in a war. We are in a war for our lives. We are in a war for the life of all humanity. And we cannot delay these things, because God, the Creator, and I'm going to have to go back into a little bit of religious discussion over here. If we would be completely eliminating God, there would be no problem. We could solve our own problems our own way. But unfortunately, there is a Creator who has preordained history. And all these things, human history was preordained.
Okay,
so,
let me stop you for just a moment here, because 2,000 years ago, for 2,000 years, the Bible's been warning us about the mark of the beast, and don't take it, but without it you won't be able to buy or sell. And a few last year sometime, they started running commercials for a little chip, and this little chip, has been embedded into the new Obama health care plan. By 2013, you will have to take this mark if you want to buy or sell. It'll link to your bank account. It'll link to your medical records.
May I interrupt here? I just want to mention to you, Clay, that next March, a year from now exactly, it's in the law.
Yes, sir.
That we're supposed to have these chips unless we're going to change the government, unless we're going to change the House bill, the new House bill, and the National Defense Authorization Act. So unless we're going to change that, and we're going to have an election this year, we are in big trouble. This is why I'm saying that these places of safety is so enormously important right now, because what is going to happen is that, what is going to happen is that there is going to be a separation between the people who are going to go along with this plan and those people who do not want to go along with this plan. So there's going to be a fight, and I know that some people want to have a militia and make things right, even in a military manner. But the key issue is, if we want to stay alive, okay, then we have to obey spiritual laws. Now, it's very difficult for us today, because our society is not based on law. We are totally a lawless society. You see, we have changed the United States on June 5, 1933, with House Joint Resolution 192. Then we changed our monetary system from changing from the American money of the dollar, which used to have a 2-bar through it because it was real money, established on biblical principles of the Old Testament as a medium of exchange. And the money, American dollar, was established by, I think, 32 grains of silver, and that was maintained by the Congress, and the Congress was maintaining the money, or issuing the money, okay? Now, what happened on June 5, 1933, which was a result of 1913 and 1917 and all the events leading up to this point, that we changed from God's money of the Old Testament to fiat money of the anti-God. Fiat money is basically not money. Fiat money is a credit system where you cannot pay your bill. No matter what you do, you cannot pay your bill because this is not money. It's private money. So for you to do that, because that is, you know, when you can buy and sell, what do? You do transactions. But really, you cannot pay for things. So in a sense, in a biblical sense I'm talking about now, we are becoming thieves. And the punishment of thievery is death. It's a carnal, not carnal, but anyway, it's a deadly sin. Because, you know, we have to become like God. That's our ultimate calling and purpose in life. So God is not a liar, and He is the definer of truth by defining His laws.
Now,
so
let me stop you for a moment, because you made mention of that we are in a war, and I've been saying this for some time, and
right.
and it's a spiritual war. There's good against evil. The problem that we really have, and I think you've touched on that, is how do you fight evil without becoming evil? Because if you go out and kill all the blacks, kill all the Mexicans, kill all the Jews, kill all the Muslims, then you're just turned as evil as the people that we're supposed to be standing against now.
Right.
What is the war? Who are our enemies? You've named one of them, the international bankers, the ones that are issuing this fiat money, the ones that are printed as much money as they want to buy up any companies. And our founding fathers told us, if you allow a private bank to issue your money, the banks and the corporations that spring up around them will leave you homeless in the land that we conquered.
Right. You know, you are so right. If you go into war and you don't know who's your enemy, you are in bad shape because you can't win the war, right?
We don't know. I mean, we're being fed propaganda that wants us to turn against the Muslims. But the Muslims represent a hell of a lot of people that were at one time in their creation. They had no problem with the Christians at all. They both felt the same. They both felt the same way, and they both worshipped one God.
Yeah, well, they wanted to be Christians in the very beginning, but then they were turned down, and that's how they become their own self-religion. And that's a very interesting story. But I want to go back to your question over here: who is our enemy? Because see, that's the key. And once we ask the right questions, we 50% solve the problem.
If you ask the right question, or if you ask the wrong questions in this thing, if we happen to bring up the involvement of Jews or Pharisees or Zionists or whatever they were 2,000 years ago, the ones that Jesus ran out of the temple, the ones that put Jesus on a cross. And I even have a little bit of a problem understanding why we venerate the weapon of or the instrument of torture that they as far as a religion. So, but you can, as a preacher, you can answer me that. You know what Jesus tried to tell us, that we've got God inside it. We've got a direct link to God. It's called a soul. It's called a conscience, in my opinion here. Jesus tried to tell us, you can do what I do and more if we can raise to that level of consciousness. And I say Jesus may have been the first rebel that solved that problem. How do you fight evil without becoming evil? He didn't commit any evil.
Well, you just touched on the very nerve of this very issue. Who is our enemy? Well, this goes back to a much more basic problem. To understand this problem correctly is, why did God create evil? And what is evil? So are the Jews evil? Are the Muslims evil? Are our next neighbor evil? Or are we evil? So understanding this issue is extremely important. But again, because this is a religious issue, we have a tremendous confusion in this field. What is evil and what is good, or what is truth? So to find out who is our enemy, we have no other option than to take a religious issue, because science does not give us any answer on this particular field. And the reason for that is because science has no answer how to gain eternity or eternal life. And basically that's the question of the bottom of the bottom of the bottom question. You know, truth is like a onion. You have different leaves, and then you finally come to a very core when you cut the onions into half. You see the core in the very beginning, and even that is a little leaves on it. So the basic issue is what is the truth, and who has the truth. And then once we have that, then we can identify our enemy. Once we identify our enemy, then of course we can be very effective in a war. But if we cannot identify our enemy, we can never win a war. And this is what is happening. We are put into a confusion, so we would not know who is our enemy. We are looking to the Zionists, we are looking to the Jews, we are looking to the Gentiles, we are looking to different religions, we are looking to our neighbor.
The Bible, didn't the Bible kind of tell us that was going to happen? Isn't the parable of the tares and the wheat that story? Who do you go out and take out? Who do you eliminate? How do you tell the difference between what's in somebody's heart?
Right, we can. So what is happening is this is why this subject of having place of safety or place of refuge or the Freedom Village or Liberty Village is extremely important, because see, we will have to separate certain people who are of the right mind, who are willing to obey the right law. First of all, the right God, and then who gives the law which decide what is truth and error. And then upon that we can build the religions to practice that, and then we have the government to enforce that. So what is happening right now, not to sidestep the issue over here, I'm just trying to step back and to give the different light on it, so we could come to a right answer to this question, who is our enemy? And basically, again, this is a religious issue, we like it or not, because we have to go beyond ourselves and recognize that there is a God who created everything, who decides what is truth and what is error, and it's not in our power to go ahead and do it. Now, we are, like you mentioned, we are living in a 21st century, and you and I agree that this is the greatest century of all human history, because we are seeing all these tremendous technological advances. I mean, just in my age, I was able to see the electricity brought into our community. I was able to see the first aeroplanes. I mean, just in our lifetime, we were able to discover sub-minimal particles of atoms and molecules and viruses and gene splicings and a computer and
the miracle of our DNA. This is intelligent design. The way everything works is intelligent design. You have to understand that. And I don't think, personally, I don't think God cares whether you call him Allah or Yahweh or I don't think he really cares. What do you think? And now let me ask you one other thing too. I've also said that I think it's possible, based on just what you've just said here. I mean, the technology here, for 2,000 years they've been warning us about the mark of the beast. Now they got commercials for it on television. And they got it built into your health care bill. So everything they told us 2,000 years ago is happening now.
Right.
And I kind of refer to what's happening now as the eighth beast predicted by the Bible.
Right.
Which may be the whole Rothschilds, one world, government of the bankers, by the bankers, and for the bankers. And we've been fighting the same battle for 2,000 years. Who did Jesus run out of the temple? Aren't we fighting the same battle? I mean, there ain't no such thing as a new world order here. This is the old world order. It's always been around. They've always wanted to enslave us. And the Bible is a whole story about people fighting for their freedom and trying to warn their relatives about what's going to happen. And I've got it on the cover of my book, Mystery Babylon, The New World Order Unveiled. 2,000 years ago, the Bible told us of the coming of the new